Great for you to join us now for this next hour or so, which really is the centrepiece of our program today. So while you're making your way across, let me just welcome you and introduce what we're going to do by beginning by acknowledging the Gubbi Gubbi people, the traditional custodians of this land on which we meet, and paying respects to their elders past and present. Thank you for coming today. We have arrayed here on the stage to my right a stellar group of aviators, ladies who have worked in aviation in various careers, and they are going to be speaking to you in just a moment, and we are delighted to have you here. So thank you very much, ladies, for making such an effort to be here. My name is Gary Hills. I'm the events manager here at the Queensland Air Museum. We're all volunteers here, and we're delighted to be able to help you out today with anything that you might need. A little bit of housekeeping to start. There are 2 toilet blocks available for you. If you follow the signs, you'll find that there's another block out there behind the DC3 if you go through the sliding glass door there. And to let you know, if there is an emergency evacuation required, all of the vehicle gates are unlocked. Make your way out to the flagpoles there where we would assemble in the unlikely event of an emergency. Tray tables, oxygen, no, that doesn't come into it. Don't attempt humour today, Gary, is probably the answer to that. What I will do to get things rolling is to call upon our state representative, Jason Hunt. Jason, if you would come up. Jason is the member for Caloundra, and his assistant, Ash, is here today. Let's welcome Jason.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you very much to the Queensland Air Museum for hosting this amazing and very worthwhile event. Could also join Gary in acknowledging the traditional owners, the Gubbi Gubbi people, and acknowledging their elders past, present and emerging. Why are we here today? So I won't talk for long, 2 hours at the absolute most. So, we're here today to celebrate, acknowledge and promote women in aviation and in the field of aviation. But why are we doing it? Why are we singling out women in aviation? Has anyone ever heard of a young girl called Malia Knox? That would be a no. Malia Knox she was at the time, a 9-year-old girl who was walking around Brisbane with her mother. And they were walking through one of the parks in Brisbane looking at the statues. And there were no statues of women in the park. They passed about a dozen statues. And so she asked her mother why that was the case. And her mother didn't have an answer. So Malia, at the age of 9, she's now 11, took it upon herself to start a campaign called Female Faces in Public Places. At the age of 9, she started this. And as a consequence, there's now a government project designed to look at and celebrate in monuments influential and important women, including women in the field of aviation, all over Queensland. And when they delved a little bit deeper, they found that there were more statues of animals in Queensland than there were statues of women. So they had identified, and I know, it's a sign of the times, but it's also a sign of the times that we're moving on from that. So as a consequence, it's very important now that we acknowledge, promote and celebrate the participation of women in every possible field, including aviation, which is why I'm so very pleased to be here today and so very pleased and honoured as the MP to welcome you to this magnificent museum that we're lucky enough to have in our community. And with that, I thank you all very much.
Thank you, mate. Thank you, Jason. Now, we have a moderator for our panel this morning, and she will introduce all of our panel members to you. But may I introduce Mandy Henschel, who is Marketing Manager and Fundraising Manager for Westpac Lifesaver Rescue Helicopter Service. Thank you for being here, Mandy. And some of your crew. And there was a big yellow and red helicopter coming over a little bit before. I don't know what they were doing buzzing us, but it was nice to have them there too. We've worked with Westpac Lifesaver Rescue Helicopters a couple of times, and it's great to have you here. Now, that's enough from me. I'm going to introduce to you one more special guest. She will introduce herself by name, but she's come a very long way to be here today, and I would like you to welcome her, now.
My God, it's a woman. That's what he said down the telephone when he heard my voice. Just recently this was, early 1936. A grazier, Charles Russell was his name, had become stranded on one of his properties due to heavy rain and needed to be flown out. Well, his agent knew that I was the only charter pilot in Cunnamulla, so he put me on the phone to get landing instructions. I said, hello. There was a stunned silence, then a horrified, my God, it's a woman. Nancy is my name, Nancy Bird. Delighted to meet you all. I've been flying since I was 19, and you have to keep your sense of humor, believe me. Let me give you an example. During 1935, when I was flying out of Burke trying to build a charter business, my beautiful leopard moth was safely tucked away in its own little hangar, but I needed a hangar of my own. So I found a room at Fitzgerald's Hotel where I stayed for almost 9 months. Now, a young girl living alone in a country town, well, the grazier's wives did wonder whether I was respectable. My clothes probably didn't help. I couldn't afford many clothes. Running an aeroplane is very expensive. So whenever I was washing and maintaining my leopard, I wore shorts in summer. The sight of me walking in my shorts from the hotel to the airfield apparently shocked some of the more staid citizens. Now, I've wanted to fly ever since I can remember. When I was 4 years old, I would balance on the back fence with my arms outstretched, pretending to be an epiplane. When I was 14, I bought Frank Swaffer's book, Learning to Fly, and concentrated hard to get my head around lift and drag and angles of incidence, not to mention carburetors, crankshafts, and cylinders. Then, when I was 15, after saving every penny for years and years, I took my first instructional flight. By 17, I had saved £200, and despite my father's strong objections, I started flying lessons. Smithy, Sir Charles Kingsford Smith, did not approve. He thought it wasn't a woman's place to fly. But I was determined, and when I was 19, I became the youngest woman in the British Empire to gain a commercial pilot's license. And I was determined to make good use of it. Let me tell you one story before I hand over to these delightful ladies. It is an example of the conditions we have to fly in, as well as the vital importance of aviation for people in the country. In emergencies, I have acted as an aerial ambulance, and, believe me, for people living on remote homesteads, getting to a doctor could sometimes take days or weeks on horseback. While I was stationed in Burke, I made many flights for the Far West Children's Health Scheme set up by Stanley Drummond. One Sunday afternoon, a call came. A dear woman was hemorrhaging and needed to get to a hospital urgently. I raced the daylight to fly to a station outside Wilcannia. But where was it? I only had a rudimentary road map, a few verbal instructions, and the telegraph line to guide me. Well, I finally located it, and then was anxious when I saw the size of the tiny paddock I had to land in. But land safely I did. And then the men had to remove the stockyard fence in minutes so that I would have enough room to take off again. Well, I got her to the doctor in Burke, touching down just on dark, and that woman's life was saved. People have told me that women are not biologically or temperamentally suited to flying. Well, all I can say is that I do not consider myself a good pilot, but I am a safe pilot, and it is a joy and a privilege to fly over this great brown land and meet such wonderful people and be able to come to the rescue in their time of need. Thank you for listening to me today, and now we can listen to these marvelous ladies of aviation.
Thank you, Catherine. That was amazing. So Catherine's monologue was actually adapted by Gary from Nancy's autobiography, My God, It's a Woman. So Catherine is actually also 24 years old and was portraying a 23-year-old Nancy Bird Walton. I was actually lucky enough to meet Nancy Bird when I attended Australian Women's Pilots Association event out at Longreach a few years ago. And she was amazing, absolutely inspiring for women in aviation. A couple of interesting facts for you. Nancy Bird Walton founded the Australian Women's Pilots Association, and they are here present today. Thank you very much for attending. A special shout out to Vanessa, who is the AWPA Queensland President. Thank you very much. Nancy Bird Walton is also only one of 5 women to be included in the Australian Aviation Hall of Fame. Another one of those is Deb Laurie. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mandy Henschel. I currently work with the Westpac Lifesaver Rescue Helicopter Service Base. I just would like to do a little shout out to our crew. Obviously Anita is here on the stage, but we've got our crew in attendance, thank you very much, and also our fabulous volunteers for coming and helping out today. So we're very excited to have you all here. The program of events today is that we are going to speak to these amazing and inspiring ladies. I did slightly get sidetracked out the back when we were speaking and was told we needed to hurry up and get on stage because they are very interesting. So please bear with me. I'm about to tell you all of their achievements, and I am reading because I don't want to miss anything out. So bear with me, please. So firstly, we have Air Vice Marshal Julie Hammer, AMCSC, who's now currently retired. Okay. Julie, an electronics engineer, served in the RAAF for 28 years from 1977 to 2005 in the fields of aircraft maintenance, technical intelligence, electronic warfare and information and communications technology. Julie was the first woman to command an operational unit in the RAF, the Electronic Warfare Squadron, the first woman to command the Australian Defence Force Academy, this is why I had to read this out. The first serving woman in the Australian Defence Force to achieve 1-star rank in 1999 and subsequently 2-star rank in 2003. The University of Queensland named Julie the 2003 Alumnus of the Year, and she was appointed a member of the Order of Australia in 2004 on the Australia Day list honours list. She was the 2005 ACT Australian of the Year, and in 2009 was awarded an honorary doctorate by the University of New South Wales to recognise her eminent service to the profession. Please welcome Julie. Thank you. And next beside Julie we have Lauren Jones. Lauren is the CASA Wings Young Aviator of the Year for 2022. Lauren is an outstanding student from Griffith Aviation, who I believe are also here today. So she's also an executive team member and leader in her student organisations and is also a recipient of the Sir Samuel Griffith Connect Scholarship, Griffith University Award for Academic Excellence, NASA and Houston Association for Space and Science Education Scholarship, School Academic Medal and Academic Excellence Awards. She attends events hosted by Aviation Aerospace Australia and Women in Aviation International Chapter. Volunteering her time as an exhibitor at the Girls in Aviation Day allows her to share her love of aviation with others and while she's still considering career options. Sorry, thank you. So Lauren is also currently in a leadership position of Chief Student Pilot within Griffith Aviation. Lauren Jones, everyone. And thirdly, we have the fabulous Deb Laurie, Australia's first female airline pilot. So on the 22nd of January 1980, Deb Laurie, then Wardley, made history. She flew as a co-pilot of an Ansett flight from Alice Springs to Darwin, making her Australia's first female pilot for a major airline. This event marked the culmination of a protracted battle through the courts and was the first successful sex discrimination case against an employer in Australia. Deb learnt to fly when she was 16. Yeah. and earned her private and commercial licences before applying for a pilot position with Ansett. In 1978, after having been rejected for 2 years, she took Ansett to the newly formed Victorian Equal Opportunity Commission over its refusal to employ her as a pilot on the grounds of her gender. Ansett lost, but appealed the case all the way to the High Court. Under a successful girlcott, women urged businesses to transfer their travel accounts to TAA, resulting in Ansett losing more than 50% of its business travel as a result. When Ansett was forced to employ Deborah, the company attempted to sack her by claiming she had caused a near miss at Moorabbin Airport, despite an inquiry exonerating her. Ansett relented when unions took on her cause, but it wasn't until Rupert Murdoch and Peter Abels took over the company and that Deb finally got her wings. Deb was one of 1,640 pilots who resigned en masse following the 1989 Australian pilots dispute. She went on to pilot for KLM in the Netherlands for 16 years before returning to Australia to fly for Jetstar. In 2012, Deb joined Tiger Air Australia, which, until the airline was shut down during COVID, employed the highest proportion of female pilots in the country. Deb was inducted into the Victorian Honour Roll of Women in 2001. She has made a Fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society and a Master Air Pilot. And this is why I need notes. Deb was made a member of the Order of Australia in 2019 Queen's Birthday Honours List in recognition of her significant service to aviation as a commercial pilot and to women in the profession. In June 2020, she was inducted into the Australian Aviation Hall of Fame. In 2023, Deb celebrated 54 years of flying and continues to fly the Boeing 737 with Virgin Australia. She's the most experienced female airline pilot in the world. Please welcome Deb. World, Australia, the world. These women are simply extraordinary. I'm so sorry, they're amazing. So then we have Air Traffic Controller Naomi McQueen. Naomi's aviation career began 20 years ago in air traffic control, and she is still enjoying the challenges, responsibility and excitement that her operational role brings. She has recently widened her focus and has taken on positions to support and encourage emerging aviators and women in aviation. She is currently the Project Officer for the Women of Civil Air Network and Vice President of the Sunshine Coast Aero Club. She has a graduate diploma in aviation management, human factors, and is a controller at Sunshine Coast International Airport, Maroochydore. So for those of you who fly, you've probably heard her on the airwaves. She was recently awarded a certificate of recognition by Air Services Australia under their Living Our Values initiative for her outstanding contribution to International Women's Day activities, as well as educating and encouraging community members to consider a career in aviation. Please welcome Naomi. I could have written a book. And then, of course, last but not least, I have the pleasure of working with Anita Moore, who is currently one of our Westpac Lifesaver Rescue Helicopter Service air crew. Anita, that would be my volunteers. Thank you very much. So Anita joined the Westpac Lifesaver Rescue Helicopter Service crew as a volunteer in 2009 and was certified as a rescue crew member in 2011 and air crew in 2017. Born in Singapore and brought up in a rubber plantation on the south tip of Malaysia, Anita represented Malaysia in netball from the age of 16 until 24, came over to Australia and became an exercise physiologist and studied at UWA. She worked in the mines for Western Mining in WA and then was transferred to Phosphate Hill and relocated to the Sunshine Coast. Anita currently works as the Community Education Manager at Alex Headland Surf Life Saving Club and obviously volunteers her time as our rescue crew for our Westpac Lifesaver Rescue Helicopter Service chopper. Please let me introduce Anita. So on that note, I'm ready to sit down and have a cup of tea. So I'm going to hand over to these wonderful ladies. We've got some questions that we're going to ask, which will hopefully give you a fabulous insight into their careers, their challenges, and everything that they've gone through in order to get to where they are today. Firstly, first question for the panel is, what has been the greatest challenge you have faced in your career? So initially we're going to ask Deb.
Thanks, Mandy. You've probably already summarised it a little bit in the intro, but the High Court for me was obviously a huge challenge. I was 25 years of age, and going in front of a full bench of the High Court to defend what I believed was my right to be able to fly as an airline pilot. That was massive. We managed to get through that, and then in 1989, as you mentioned, there were pilots' dispute, which grounded every single airline pilot or domestic airline pilot in Australia. And I felt at that time that my career was completely washed up. I was over the hill. There was going to be nothing more for me in that area of aviation. And also around the world, there were still not many women in airlines. The Middle East certainly were none. In the Asian countries, Singapore Airlines, Malaysian Airlines, no women. America was very difficult to break into. So the only opportunity I had at that time was to go to KLM over in Europe, over in Holland, and very fortunate to be able to fly there and resume my career, which really accelerated after that point, I must say. I returned to Australia basically to keep flying because they have early retirement rules over there, and I just didn't want to retire. Still don't. But anyway, I came back and did a stint with Jetstar and then ended up with Tiger. And the next big challenge for me was COVID. So I was right at the top of my game at this time, doing a check and training captain. And bang, our airline was shut down overnight. And once again, it was probably even more dramatic than 1989, if I'm honest. I started getting used to the idea that maybe that was it, it's all over, and then the opportunity came up with Virgin. So my big challenge now is to fly a 737. It's not easy. Yeah, so that's for me, I think. There's been several, but they're the standout ones.
And COVID obviously the aviation industry did take a massive hit during COVID.
Yes.
And it did, I think it shook everything up a little bit. So obviously that's now your next, we're finally coming out of all that. We can have fabulous events like this. So moving forward, bring it on, here we go. So Julie, how about yourself? What has been the greatest challenge you've faced within your career? Okay.
I think the challenge I'd like to focus on is perhaps the last 15 years of my career, when I was starting to become quite senior, and I realised that every move I made was visible, that people were watching all my decisions, all my actions, and that I needed to be very, very careful and think very hard about everything that I did. Visibility can be a wonderful thing, but it can also be a great challenge that you don't inadvertently make a mistake. Visibility also means that a lot of opportunities come your way, and it was at a time in male-dominated occupations where everyone wanted to have a female viewpoint in whatever activity they were involved in. So I got an awful lot of extra requests to do things that were not in line with my day-to-day job. I was asked to, for example, from the rank of group captain, to sit on the Chief of Air Force Advisory Committee along with all the many much more senior male officers to myself, and to provide a female perspective on all of the issues that they were dealing with. Just one example of quite a number of different extra jobs I got. That caused a lot of extra work for me, but it was also a great opportunity to actually demonstrate that women could do anything that was asked of them.
Absolutely. And I think with our current panel, you ladies have absolutely proven that. So with regards to visibility, I know we had a little chat out the back before, and one of the interesting points that someone made was, to the point, visibility is that people were actually watching what you ate or what you wore, and there were even subsequent comments about shoes. or skirts within the industry. I think even Lauren, you mentioned wearing a skirt now.
Yeah, definitely. So I do wear a skirt with my uniform at uni, and obviously my university has been very supportive on an organisational level, so I obviously haven't faced as many challenges as these lovely ladies. But it's more on a social level these days that we are facing challenges. You know, those snarky little comments about what you're wearing or how you present yourself are definitely a challenge to one's confidence when you're operating in an environment like that.
Absolutely. And I think, Naomi, you as well mentioned a pair of shoes.
Yeah, my shoes are often commented on, and not in a particularly nice way either. So it is a social thing now, rather than, there's no rules in our organisations. I wouldn't imagine that preclude the wearing of certain types of shoes, but it is something that doesn't go by unnoticed.
So these are some of the little challenges that can obviously be faced throughout careers. Our next panel question is, what are some of the strategies that women can use to meet the challenges that they face within the workplace? So I might go to Naomi.
I think, there are, we've just heard from Lauren about the contemporary challenges maybe being more social than organisational, and certainly with Deb's experience too, there's processes that come into place to make the opportunities for women, help them to advance through things like the Equal Opportunity Committee and those sorts of structural things that have changed that provide the opportunities for women to start to get involved in the workplace in those areas. But as we heard from Lauren with the social issues, that's certainly something that is still a challenge. The bias that can come from being a woman, as we heard from Catherine as Nancy Bird talking about, oh my God, it's a woman. We still have those sorts of things. And a few years ago, I wasn't the successful applicant in a job that I'd been acting in for a significant amount of time. And I was told at that time by a manager who's since retired, so he did have that older view, that I really needed to forget all about work and go home to my beautiful house and spend some time with my new husband. And I thought, oh dear, should I take my shoes off and get pregnant as well? That sort of bias is really challenging. But from that, it's been sort of one of the catalysts in really getting out that silo that I've been in and talking to people in different areas of aviation. So meeting people like from the Air Museum, people at the Aero Club, pilots, firefighters, aviation firefighters we have, getting out and talking to different people and making connections and making friends through networks. And often it is those female networks that are the most supportive. So that instance was really demoralising for me, and I was very upset about it. But I feel that if something similar happened again now, I have this just huge support network, and I'd be straight on the phone to one of my friends and say, guess what happened? And we'd just have a great big laugh about it. It wouldn't be such a knock for my confidence because I have a support network. So I think that for me personally in the last few years has been really important, that social connection, and that's actually widened my world and made a lot of things in my day-to-day working life a lot easier.
And having that camaraderie as well can help, obviously, on an emotional support level and mental health support level. So, Deb, I know you mentioned about a captain that you were flying with, and I'll let you tell the story.
Well, I'd been flying with a female training captain just recently who is, I have to say, absolutely awesome. I have really impressed with her level or everything about her, actually. And she unfortunately got sick halfway through my training, and I got a guy replacement. And he was very, you're just talking about confidence. It's really, it's so easy to lose it if you get the wrong type of interaction. And I thought my assessment of him was pretty accurate, but I wasn't sure. And I called her and I said, I've just been flying with so-and-so, and I could see her rolling her eyes over the phone. So she was very, she reinforced, a bit like what you were saying, Naomi, she reinforced my assessment of the situation, and I could move on from there. And I mean, look at me, I'm like really old and it still happens.
So I think also, hopefully we've got some young women out there who are wanting to be engaged in that aviation industry or even any form of male-dominated industry. So the confidence was a big thing for them. So what would you tell them today if they were sitting in here going, oh, I'd really love to be a fighter jet pilot or something like that? What would you say to them to just do it?
Me?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, and this is what I had right back when I was very, very young, is you have to believe in yourself, because you are the one who knows exactly what you can do and how you're going to do it. And if you've got that confidence in yourself and you work hard, others will just follow with you and they will help you. Everyone wants to help somebody who wants to achieve, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, Lauren, case in point for you at the moment, you're coming through with your career and having some mentors, I believe, is something that's helped you as well, and people you can go to for support.
Yeah, definitely. Having an amazing female network as well as a male network. My deputy chief and one of my best friends is sitting right here with us. And also just having women in positions of leadership to back you up when you need it. Case in point, our director, head of discipline. But also having those male friends who are able to validate your experiences and say, hey, I saw that and that's not right, because obviously it is still male dominated. So having those friends that are willing to stand up for you, even though they're not going through the same thing as you, is really important. Yeah,
just to have that support. And obviously, so Anita and I, we work with an amazing bunch of men at the Westpac Lifesaver Rescue Helicopter Service, and they're very supportive, and I've been blown away with how they've welcomed me. I'm only a newbie, so they've welcomed me with open arms. So Anita, what's some of the support that you've received?
Well, as you can see, those three dashing, handsome...
Yeah.
for coming all the way from the Gold Coast to support me up here. So it is really important to have support, whether it be male or female. It's also, as you know, these lovely ladies were saying, it's hard work, determination. I mean, when I first found out what I had to do to get into the Westpac Lifesaver Helicopter Rescue, try to say that when you have had 3 beers, you actually, you know, it's finding the determination. I don't know, if you're looking at me, look, I'm biomechanically made to sit on a couch and eat food. So when they said that if you have to... Yeah, Gary's about to cut me off right now.
And that was mean.
So I think the thing is when I found out that I had to run 2.4 kilometres under 12 minutes, I didn't think, oh yeah, I'll just make it out of the day, and if I flutter my eyelids really, really badly, they'll let me through. I worked at it. I made sure that I had 6 months of training, and also knowing what I had to do to be a rescue crew, knowing what Westpac Lifesaver Helicopter Rescue, having the passion, having the belief in myself, not comparing myself to anyone, but knowing what I wanted to do. So that's what I thought was really good to, you know, just prepare myself.
I think that's a really good point, because I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I continuously tell her, don't compare yourself to anyone. Run your own race, stay in your lane, don't look at someone else and see what they've achieved. You just focus on what you need to do. And I think that's really important for us to show our young women and men that moving forward, you can do whatever you want. There's no glass ceiling anymore. We want to smash through that. So yeah, it's great advice. So then we come to our next question, which is, what are some roles and work experience options for young women? So I've heard some very interesting stories about women on the panel who are wanting to do certain work experience and weren't able to because they were women. So I might jump to you, Naomi, if that's okay.
Okay, so work experience when I was in high school, I finished high school in 1998, and my work experience, I was at Bray Park State High School, and I said, I want to go to the RAF base at Amberley. And the school said, oh, no, you won't be able to go there. They won't have you. And I said, well, I'm actually pretty sure that they would like to have me there on work experience, so let's make the application and see. And they took me. It was exciting. I had to catch 2 trains. It took, I think, about 2 hours to get there each morning and 2 hours to get home in the afternoon. And on the 3rd day, I was sitting on top of an F111 with the crew, and one of them asked me what I wanted to do when I finished high school. And I said, I want to be an F111 pilot. And they said, well, you can't. And I thought, this is odd. And I said, why not? And they said, because you're a girl. And that was the first time anybody had said to me I couldn't do something because I was a female. And they were correct. At that time, women were not fast jet pilots. They said to me, you can perhaps fly one of our cargo aircraft. And I thought, but I don't want to do that. So that sort of, that experience was an interesting one, and I ended up leaving high school, working overseas for a while, and when I came back, air traffic controllers were being recruited, so that's how I ended up in my role. But now, and I think we'll talk about it a bit later as well, how times have changed, I'll be at work in the tower and we'll get some Super Hornets that come through and there'll be a female pilot and I'll think, woo, like that has changed. You can do that now. And while I think Lauren will talk about there's not so many opportunities for work experience at the Air Force at the moment, but we do have the cadets here. That's sort of a way that young people can look at getting some exposure to our Air Force and to those systems that we have there and making some connections. But we've also, I think, through, as we're talking about before, networks and supports and how important that is, through some of the networks that I've built and become part of at the Sunshine Coast Airport, we're now able to offer a work experience program for students. So while it's very difficult to do work experience in aviation because obviously you need a lot of training to be winched from an aircraft, you need a lot of training before you're allowed to speak on a radio or land an aeroplane, all of those sorts of things. At the Aero Club we can do famil visits, so you go to the tower, to the fire station, go airside with the airport operations team, all of these different roles that are available in aviation that people might not necessarily think of first up. So I think that's been a really great way to encourage young people and give them some opportunities, but that's also come through by the people that have been in the industry for some time, putting some ideas and thoughts and effort together.
It's great, isn't it? And I think the world obviously is their oyster at the moment. I'd love to go back a couple of years and maybe readjust, but that's okay, onwards and upwards. So Lauren, you've got some ideas of roles that are available for young women and men within industries?
Yep. So it is difficult as a young person to get an operational work experience job these days just due to safety and security reasons. But I found through my degree it was really good to have a work integrated learning placement, so that's an internship with a company. I was with LifeFlight on a management side just to see how it works from a management point of view, and it's really good for when you do move into those operational roles to have a really good idea of what you're doing. And also organisations such as the cadets if you're looking at military, or the Air League if you're looking at civilian, are a really good option just to get that work experience that you desperately want.
And I think also too, something that's important to flag is that even if you get into a career, Deb, you mentioned you thought you were washed out because you were old at 25. I just think you're looking at that age, and you don't necessarily have to stop. You could just maybe segue to a different, might be an idea for...
Yeah, definitely. I think as you get older, and I think Julie found this the same thing, you got asked to do more and more things and different things. I know I've been asked to do a lot of work in safety. I really enjoy it, but it does add to your workload quite a bit.
Yeah.
But there's all different opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even, Julie, some of the opportunities that were presented to you as a result of being a female, so having the positive perspective there, what was that like for you? Did it open up your career options?
It certainly did, and it made me think about a lot of aspects that were quite different from my normal engineering technical focus. I had to think about personnel issues, like I was asked to advise not only the Chief of Air Force Committee but the Chief of Defence Force Committee what I thought about allowing women in combat. And Admiral Chris Barry was the Chief of Defence Force at the time, and my advice to him was that gender should not be the issue, skills and capability should be the issue, and women who can meet a realistic requirement, not a male-oriented requirement, should be just as eligible to fulfil a role as men, and men who cannot meet that requirement should not be in a position to undertake that role either.
Absolutely. And I think that works in the corporate world as well. So aviation, yes. Working engineering, yes. But also every day it should be quite that lovely balance across the board, shouldn't it? For example, I worked with a construction company who had female managers who ensured that people coming up through the ranks were actually female, and it didn't matter if you were male or female. So having that opportunity should be available to everyone. Over to the audience now. I just wanted to see if anyone out there would like to ask some questions. We do have a microphone set up here if anyone has a question for these amazing and talented women. If you'd like to come up to the, you're going to scream? Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you mind coming up to the microphone? Thank you very much. Sorry, we're putting you up in front of everyone.
Just with Julie's career, where you've done, where you've started and what you did, and you went into certain areas, you sort of run over a little bit quick. I'd like a bit more in depth, where you went through your military, what they did and where you started from and how you worked your way up to different areas, because I think there's a lot of areas there that you covered that people probably don't understand what you've done in the military in a tough game,
Thanks, and I will try not to go on for too long because I think the other ladies have wonderful stories to tell as well. I joined the Air Force in 1977, and it was at a time when women's roles were severely restricted, and I will talk a little bit about progress a bit later on in our session, but women were not allowed to be engineers when I joined. I joined as an education officer, and I was able to transfer to engineering a few years later when it did open up to women on the basis of my technical science degree majoring in physics. I was lucky to be around at a time when new opportunities were opening up as I progressed, and I did time in maintenance on hangar floors, leading teams of technicians. I did time in engineering management. I was given the opportunity to further my education by studying for a Masters in Systems Engineering in the UK with the RAF. And then I did a very interesting tour in technical intelligence in the Joint Intelligence Organisation before going on to electronic warfare projects. And those opportunities set me on a slightly different path to many of my colleagues because I became an electronic warfare specialist and had a lot to do with not only the intelligence community but the communities, the electronic warfare communities in Army and Navy as well. Eventually, I evolved that interest into command and control projects, which are developing the software on which the military today plan and run their military operations across the whole Department of Defence, including the 3 services. And I was fortunate enough to be, first of all, involved in the project that introduced those large software and hardware systems into the military, and then later on in running them with a team of 1,500 people across Australia. So my career was sort of atypical of your normal electronics engineer, but it was certainly a fascinating career, and I did actually have to lobby very hard for some of the positions that I went into. the position of Commanding Officer Electronic Warfare Squadron, which I mentioned in my bio, was not one that I was actually eligible to be considered for. And I had to go to the postings officer and say, I have the background and the experience to do that job, and I would like you to include engineers as candidates in your selection criteria, not just our winged warriors, not just the aircrew. It was an aircrew job. And happily, that was a very enlightened gentleman who went to quite senior levels to get permission to open up the selection process to engineers as well as aircrew. And what do you know? My name came out with the most number of ticks against it to get that job. And so I make that point simply because without being proactive and without fighting and lobbying for the roles that I wanted, my career would not have gone in the direction that it subsequently did.
I agree. I love how Julie sat there and went, oh, my career's not really anything very humble. It's all these other ladies. I'm just going, really? That's amazing. So I think obviously on your first day, I'm sure it was a little tricky as well. Same with you, Deb, with regards to having an appropriate uniform available. The ladies were telling me that apparently trousers weren't available for women when they started in their careers. Thankfully, that's all changed moving forward. So we've got some good things happening in the works. So I guess rolls on to our next question, which is how have things changed over time? So maybe we might come backwards. So Anita, we might start with you first.
So I think being in my career as a volunteer is, I suppose I have been very lucky with the support with all my good colleagues, but also, having already women either training and assessing. There's a lady that had been in this service called Teresa, who's now in Dicky Beach, and she had been, one of the main trainers for some of these recruits. But I really would like to say that, tomorrow, I'm going to be on tomorrow with Sammy Thornton, an all-girl crew for the Westpac Lifesaver helicopter rescue, which has probably been going on for about, quite a few years now, with a few, women on board, either being rescue crew or air crew. So I have had the experience of, everyone has been supportive. I think the joke is that I will balance out the stats if a Asian air crew starts, rescuing you, then, it'll be equal opportunity then. Joking, everyone. Gary's turned me off. So just to say, hearing all these women, what they had to go through, I would say I didn't have that opportunity to fight and, go all that. As I came from rescue crew, the team actually asked me to be, Anita, you've had the experience now, please become an air crew. So that was my kind of experience, which I'm very, grateful. And I think it's changing even more where we're encouraging. We're having this panel right now, in front of you. In the heyday, we wouldn't. So I'm thankful for that and this opportunity.
Thanks, Anita. Naomi?
I think it's sort of, I think we flow on from just people like Julie and Deb and then Anita. It's just normalising the presence of women in that industry and just becoming more visible. And as young people like Lauren moving through, I think it is a big part of it, so that we don't hear that, oh my God, it's a woman anymore. We're not shocked when we're on a commercial airline and we hear a female from the cockpit. We're not thinking, oh my God, that's a woman. So I think for me, so much of it just comes back to networks of support and mentoring and just building confidence and having those people around you that are going to build you up. And I remember being told a story about a manager that I had a number of years ago, and after he retired, he told me about a pilot that had had said to him, "How do you put up with that annoying woman's voice all day?" And he said, "That annoying woman is named Naomi, and she's one of the best air traffic controllers I've ever worked with." And I think that kind of ties back with Deb and opportunities. You really need to push for those opportunities at times, but find those people who you think are going to be receptive to and who aren't going to just push you down all the time. And I think we are changing, we are moving forward. I think that there are more and more people that are out there that are willing to support and that see the benefits of diversity and the benefits of having everyone included.
Absolutely. Thanks, Naomi. That's great. So, coming over to you, Deb, I remember we had some discussions about how, obviously we'll go to the question of how have things changed, but I remember we had a chat about sometimes some of the comments come from women, and that's quite interesting how it all plays out.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there is sometimes we can be our own worst enemies, and it's very, very important that women do support other women. And I've just been sitting here thinking, how have things changed, apart from the obvious of more female aircrew and flying all-female flight crews and so on. I think for 40 years in airline flying, I've always pulled up and the ground crew have jacked into the side of the aircraft and gone, "The chocks are in." And it's always been a guy. Now, sometimes you hear a female voice going, "The chocks are in." And then when I get out and walk around the aeroplane, there's a female refueler. And nice. I think this is amazing. And I think Virgin did a flight for International Women's Day where the whole flight from go to woe was all done by females, which is just spectacular.
It's fantastic, isn't it? It's so great, and it's good to see that positive change, and hopefully there will be more to come, and obviously we're integral in making sure that it happens, so everyone here in this room can make that difference. So Lauren, tell us about what you think, how things have changed.
So obviously I'm sitting next to women who fought for what I am now enjoying, which is the times have definitely changed a lot. It's on an organisational level. For example, I just finished my bachelor's degree with Griffith, and at no point was I pushed back against. As a woman studying aviation, I was pushed to succeed at the highest level. They championed women succeeding in aviation, especially on an academic level and in a social aspect. And seeing that representation in leadership is really good for young women such as myself to then go, yeah, I can do that job. And if you can see it, you can be it. So,
I love
it's
that.
changing.
Perfect. Love that. And Julie, how about you?
So I thought I'd just take you through a timeline of a few events in the Air Force of how things have changed since I joined in 1977, when we didn't have equal pay, when, as we've already heard, the trousers were not a part of female uniform, and I had to have a special letter from my commanding officer to go to the clothing store and be issued with male trousers, where there were no female engineers, no female aircrew, and wherever I went, I was always the first woman in that job. Well, as I said, by about 1979, we had women as engineers, but it wasn't until 1987 when we qualified our first 2 female pilots off flying course, but they were not permitted to fly in combat aircraft. They could only fly in transport aircraft or in VIP squadrons. It wasn't until about 2000 that we had our first female aircrew on fast jets, and that was on the F-111. And then it wasn't until 2004 when we had the first female flying on F-18 fighter jets. It was around about that time when women were permitted to fly in combat aircraft. One of the women who was a trailblazer as a pilot was a Hercules pilot, and she was flying in combat in Afghanistan, and she subsequently became the first commanding officer of a flying squadron, a Hercules flying squadron, in 2006. In 2022, one of my former cadets, when I was at ADFA, who I can tell you won a university medal, she was so smart, she became a test pilot, and she is currently the commanding officer of one of the P-8 Poseidon squadrons, which replaced the Orion down in Adelaide. Also in 2023, of the 5 two-star officers in Air Force headquarters, that is Air Vice Marshals, 2 of them are women, both engineers, one of whom was my work experience engineer cadet down at Electronic Warfare Squadron when she was going through ADFA. I'm so proud of her. So things have really changed. There's really nothing that women are not permitted to do or that they cannot do extremely well in the Air Force today.
That's amazing. Thank you. I think Julie's just summed it up perfectly. So I would like to go out to the audience again if anyone would like to have a question answered by these amazing women. Please come up. So whilst you're thinking of questions, please feel free to come up. We'd love to have... Oh, yep, okay. Come through. Hi.
Hello, it's a long walk from the back.
Yes.
So I'm an engineer, I've got my own business, and we've got 3 vacancies at the moment. So we're looking for mechanical engineers, mechatronics engineers, and out of 6,000 applicants, I've got about 3 women. We'd love more women in our industry. So I'd just like to ask the panel, what would your advice be to me, who would like to encourage women in aviation to apply for jobs that we're putting out for? Because 6,000 applicants and 3 ladies is a pretty poor ratio.
Yes. I think Deb first, then Julie.
In the pilot's position, we're still only about 8% in the whole total number of pilots. And the question always I get asked is, why aren't there more women doing this role? I really believe you've got to get into the heads of girls at the age of 5 or 6 or 7, and it's got to start in the schools. You've got to go to career days and things like that to expose them to the idea. It's not that they don't want to do it, they just haven't thought about it, and it's putting the idea in their head at an early age. So if you can get to school career days or whatever, I think that's the way to go.
I also, I read something on Seek as well, that apparently with a position, say for example, if you've got 6 dot points of what needs to be filled for a position, women will typically go, oh, I can't really do that 100%, so they'll write that off and they won't do that. Whereas apparently I think it's about 75% of men will go, yeah, I'll do that. So I think it's maybe looking at how you're advertising as well, and just to ensure that women understand you don't have to know this 100%. You can train people, you can teach them. So I think it's just if you've got the right attitude, that always helps. Julie?
Yeah, so for your specific situation, and it's quite possible that you've already done this, I wonder if you've made your positions visible through your professional association, through Engineers Australia, who have a very strong and active Women in Engineering group, especially in Brisbane. Sunshine Coast, there are women in engineering involved in the local group, but there's a specific focus and a specific group in Brisbane, Women in Engineering. So my suggestion would be contact Engineers Australia and see if they can provide any avenue for your particular positions to be made visible through the Women in Engineering grouping.
Thanks, Julie. So we do have some younger students, cadets out here. I would love to hear questions from you if anyone has a question. These women are amazing. They've paved the way. So whilst we go, if anyone can think of a question, feel free to come up to the microphone. Just you can queue up there and we'll ask questions in a moment. So to finish off, in 2 or 3 sentences, what has given you the greatest joy in your career? And we might go, Julie, you first.
Thank you. I think the greatest joy I've had is realising that I have probably made a difference to other women coming along in my footsteps. There's nothing that makes me happier than meeting young women who say to me, I saw your career, I watched what you did, you were my role model, and because you were able to do it, it made me realise that I could too.
Perfect. I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Julie. And over to you, Lauren. What is, in 2 or 3 sentences, what has given you the greatest joy of your career?
Yeah, so my career's just starting, so it's probably a little bit more difficult for me, but I would say, as many people in this room, it's a great day out flying. You know, that gives you the greatest joy to, I don't know, go out to Darling Downs Soaring Club and just go gliding with your uni friends for a day and then have dinner together. You know, it is the greatest joy I can think of to just spend a simple day with your friends flying.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lauren. I've actually got a little quote here. It says, "To most people, the sky is the limit. For those who love aviation, the sky is home." So I think that works. And Deb, how about you? Greatest joy?
Very similar sentiments to Julie. Having young girls come up and say that they've also followed my career and that's helped them to get into aviation. But I think the highlight of my career has been that my son has followed in my footsteps.
Oh, that's fabulous. I love that. I have my son here today, so I'm hoping he's listening very well there, young man. So, and over to you, Naomi.
2 things. So a busy sequence at work or an emergency that I handle really well, and I've got all the aircraft sorted out and everything's ticked away, and at the end of it, when it's all over, I go, I did that well. That's really satisfying. And the second thing is when a student pilot goes solo for the first time, their instructor will call the tower to let us know that that's happening. And when they land, we always say, congratulations. And the student pilot is always, like, you can tell their voice, they're so happy, they're so proud. It's such a huge moment and they never forget it. And if we've got an airline pilot on frequency and they say congratulations as well, that student, it means so much to them.
That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Naomi. Your turn.
I love that one, supporter. Okay, so for me is being an inspiration to the younger generation, being male, female. You know, I've had a few of the rescue crew that have come and I have actually taught them, you know, through their surf life-saving skills from green caps, and now they're flying with me. So that is a real joy in seeing where they've come to. I think the other joy, as you guys all know, when you save someone's life, there's nothing more than when someone gets to shore and gets hugged by their loved ones. And you know that you've done it. That is the biggest joy, making sure the community is safe, and that's why I think I do it and the rest of the boys do it, is doing community service. And I think, you know, with the volunteers that we have, like, this function could not happen if it wasn't for the volunteers, and that occurs with any kind of organisation in Australia, and I think we're very lucky. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Anita. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our chat. However, if you do, this is final call for questions. If anyone has a question, come on, we're all friends. Don't be shy. Oh, here we go. Yes! Come on up. If anyone would like to line up behind this gentleman, please feel free to do so.
Firstly, thanks very much to our panellists for all your insights over the last hour or so. It's been really enjoyable to listen to all your stories. A couple of panellists have touched on this. I'd like to understand a little bit more. I'm sure that I'm not alone when I say that I'm a man in this audience that is supportive and wants to try and do what I can to encourage and to tap into the power of diversity. What else can we be doing to help?
Great question. Great question. I don't even know who to go to for that one. Naomi, you're in charge.
So cool aeronautics. Yeah, exactly things like that. Getting out and encouraging young people to take an interest in aviation. So cool aeronautics provides STEM outreach. I didn't plant that question. STEM outreach programs through the Royal Aeronautical Association. So things like that that just expose young people to different ideas, and the people like yourself who work as engineers or pilots or anything in aviation that come along to facilitate and deliver those programs is really important, because the young people see, oh, this person's really encouraging, they're happy to help me out. It's really important. So cool aeronautics programs like It's Rocket Science, which is another one that I really love. Anything like that. And if you've been around in the industry for a while and really want to support and help other people, volunteering, like if you're joining an association like the Australian Women's Pilots Association, or we've got NGPA there as well, and WAI, joining those sorts of associations and then volunteering at their events and sharing your stories that will help inspire the next generation.
I love that. Thanks, Naomi. Does anyone else want to jump in on that? Julie?
I was just thinking, one of the other things I've found is that I've had a few people who have joined the Air Force who've said, I would never have thought of that except you came and spoke to my school, or you came and spoke at my university graduation. So I think if as many any opportunity that arises to make visible these sorts of careers in schools, in universities, take every opportunity to put those ideas into young women's minds, whether you're a male speaker, but often preferably a female speaker, so that the young women can see that being in a role as a woman in a male-dominated profession, and certainly engineering and aviation are still male-dominated professions, having that visibility from very early in their formative years is quite important. Something else that someone in business might be able to do is seek out providing opportunities for work experience for young women. And something, although I wouldn't call it work experience, something that I'm aware has happened here at the Queensland Air Museum is that a young 18-year-old who had a passion for aviation but who wasn't yet on a formal career path actually asked if she could come and volunteer here at QAM and spend time with the incredibly experienced volunteers that are here every day of the week. And she did that, and she spent time with the guys who are restoring aircraft. She spent time with people who are guides who'd had long and successful aviation careers. She spent time with most of the men and women here at QAM, and I think that was a really positive and educational experience for her as well. So opportunities for work experience is another way that you could contribute.
Lovely. Thanks, Julie. Over to Deb.
Yeah, the question was, what more can men do to help? Is to keep doing it. Just keep doing it, because I can be very truthful in saying this, that the guys that helped me along the way were amazing, and without them you can't do it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we really need that support. So to keep doing it is the main thing, because it is acknowledged. You know.
Thank you, Deb. And Anita.
So one thing I've noticed in surf lifesaving is Westpac Lifesaver Helicopter Rescue is the pinnacle of lifesaving. I mean, it isn't. It's part of our community of what we do. And if we start telling people that, younger people, that we are only humans as well, and if we can do it, you can do it, a lot more people will get involved, because I think aviation, for those who aren't part of aviation, think it's something way, they might as well go to Mars. So I think when you bring everything, to perspective and make sure that it is achievable, I think more people will likely get in touch with you guys.
Thanks, Anita. That's perfect. And also a shout out to all the young ones who I can see here. These people have done it. They've been there. So ask the questions. They're not scary. They're approachable. They'd love to hear your questions. And seriously, take the time to listen. Don't worry about TikTok and all that other stuff, PlayStations. These are the people that you want to be talking to. So they are amazing. So that basically wraps... Oh, hang on. We might have one. Yay. We've got... Oh, please come up. Hi.
Hello. I'm in grade 12 this year, and I was thinking of going into aeronautical engineering, and I was just wondering, how do I know that it's right for me? And then is there any universities that you would recommend?
Lauren, thank you.
So obviously I have just finished my degree, so I am only 19. I did a 2-year degree. It was accelerated. So I found for me it was stuff that ignites your passion. So if you go to the airport and you look at the aircraft and you really feel something, that's how you know it's for you. Yeah. And also, obviously, doing work experience, it might be a little late now, seeing as you're in grade 12, but definitely talking to aeronautical engineers about what they do on a day-to-day basis, and aeronautical engineering students about what they do, and seeing if you could imagine doing that, then that's definitely a really good option. And I know that Griffith doesn't do aeronautical engineering, but we do a double degree of engineering and aviation, which I would really recommend.
And they're just located right here for your convenience. Thanks, Lauren. So I think the message here is that if you follow what you love, you'll become the master of it. The money will come, but follow what you love. It will. If you do that, you're set for life. I've got another question. I'm loving this. We're getting questions.
No, I just want to congratulate you on the day, because I think there should be more of this, showing what you women can do, because in the bush the jackaroos used to do all the work. Now there's jillaroos, right?
Yes.
And they're out there in their droves, and they're doing a fantastic job. You have the Royal Flying Doctor, out in the bush. We can't live without them. The care flight in Toowoomba or everywhere at Rome or all out west, So you guys, my daughter's just she's doing some stuff through TAFE engineering. And without the school and their backing, they don't get the opportunity. So there's so much opportunity out there for the young women. I reckon It's fantastic, but you need to have more of these days so people understand the opportunity out there for women. They're even playing rugby league now, and they play better than most of the blokes. I think it's a wonderful, fantastic show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Lady in the front row wants to ask a question.
Okay. Someone in the front row.
Hi.
Hi.
My career started in 1994, both military and civilian. Back in those days, it wasn't important to have a tertiary degree, particularly from Deb. Would you recommend that somebody who's maybe in grade 10 through to 12 now, would you recommend that they perhaps look at a tertiary degree? Because it seems these days the standout candidates for promotion in particular are the ones that have had that further tertiary education prior to starting their flying training, or do you feel that going straight to flying training straight from school is still perhaps the way to go?
That's a very good question and quite complex. You have certain minimum requirements for entry into different positions. I have to say that people who have experience generally do a job better than people that have got a certificate that says they've been trained in something. But it's about how do we convince or move forward with this concept in the future. If you wanted to fly, I would do the flying now and worry about the other stuff later, because that will carry you through to management or other roles within the industry. But the experience, and if you look at people that have got right to the top of their game, they started right at the grassroots level and they learnt every single aspect of that operation, which you cannot do with a degree. So I think get into it and then sort out where you want to go maybe, and then tailor the academic side of it if that's necessary. But having said that, education and knowledge is always power, so anything you can do is great. But the experience, you can't buy it.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, Naomi?
I think that question sort of ties back into the one from the young lady behind as well too. If you're interested, see if you can join up as a student or a person that's interested in one of the groups such as the Women Pilots Association or an engineering association. See if they've got any mentoring programs as well too. I know WAI does some really great mentoring programs. So if you're thinking about an area, see if you can get involved there and talk to people that have recently been through it, like Lauren, because they will have some great insight.
Thanks, Naomi. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does actually conclude our chat for today. I would like you to put your hands together for our amazing panel. Thank you, ladies. So I would also too like to thank everyone for attending, and a special thank you to Gary and his amazing team out here who have put today together. We're very grateful for this event, and like you said, that gentleman, we do need more events like this, so we're very grateful to be in attendance. I've got one last little quote for you. When everything seems to be going against you, remember that an aeroplane takes off against the wind, not with it. Thanks, everyone.